Most artists don't quit because they lack talent. They quit because they can't tolerate being average. Does your entire self-worth rise and fall with every drawing? Can a bad sketch ruin your day? This might be why. Let's draw 2 realistic portrait drawings with pencil in my sketchbook while we chat about the identity trap artists fall into and a mindset shift that can help you unlock your artistic potential. I want to start by sharing a story with you from my childhood, which might sound similar to something you've experienced yourself. I was one of those kids who drew all the time. The moment I came home from school, instead of doing my homework, I would sit at the dining room table and immediately start drawing in my sketchbook. Once, I came up with such a great idea for a drawing, which I vividly imagined in my mind. I excitedly started to draw, but as the drawing progressed, I became more and more frustrated. The image that I imagined wasn't playing out on paper as I had planned at all. In fact, it looked way worse. I remember feeling my stomach drop at this realization and angrily scribbling over my drawing and crossing it out. I'll never get good at art, I thought, and quit that drawing. My childhood sketchbooks are filled with such artworks that I simply rage quit out of disappointment. Fast forward to the present day, where I am now creating artworks better than I could have dreamed of as a child, and gotten to a point where, at the time of making this video, we have together grown this channel into a community of over 2,000 fellow artists. I am so grateful for each and every one of you here that have joined me on this journey. So, what changed? If I were to go back in time to my childhood self in this story, I would tell her this. There's this concept I heard of recently called creative shame. As the internet states, creative shame is a self-perpetuating loop where fear of judgment or perceived failure leads to self-loathing, often causing creatives to halt work, destroy projects, or avoid vulnerability, ultimately deepening the sense of unworthiness. What if the root cause of why you feel creative shame might be because you are making creating art a pillar of your identity? When you make something part of your identity, failing at it is so much harder because suddenly the stakes are much higher. If you consider yourself an artist, whenever you create an artwork that isn't up to your usual standard, or you get art blocked, you can't help but feel it's a personal offense to you and your worth as a person. Feeling that you're failing at art hurts a lot. If you're an artist, how come you're still struggling to draw facial expressions? If you're an artist, how come you don't like drawing as much as you did before? These questions and more were swirling around in my head as I started this sketchbook page. With this page, I decided to go back to the basics and challenge myself to sketch 2 portraits with pencil in my sketchbook. If you've been part of the community on this channel for a while, you'll know that I've done many sketchbook pages with just portraits. However, if you notice, the majority, if not all of the portraits that I've drawn in the past, have neutral facial expressions. These 2 realistic portraits, though, will be different because I'll be challenging myself to draw emotions. For the first portrait, I'm trying to accurately draw a woman who's really happy, and for the second, I'm trying to draw a man who looks sad. I found both of these reference photos on Pinterest, which I have linked in the description below. If you're interested, I have also linked my Pinterest page, where you can explore the many other reference photos I've collected over the years with good lighting and composition that you might want to draw yourself. When you build your entire identity around the fact that you make art, you, so to speak, put yourself in a cage. Because your self-worth depends on the outcome of your artwork, you start to fear being spontaneous, which keeps you from growing to your full potential. What most artists don't realize, though, is that typically growth happens when it's more free and not hyper-controlled. Failure is an inevitable part of learning, and actually crucial for growth. What if our fear of failure is actually holding us back from seeing actual success? As Robert F. Kennedy once said, "Only those who dare to fail greatly can ever achieve greatly." Instead of seeing failure as an end result, try to see it as just a sign of where you should try challenging yourself more. It's not a representation of who you are, it's just showing you where you could grow. Failure can only exist if you let it. It all depends on the action you choose to take afterwards. Do you choose to wallow in your emotion and never try again? Or do you transform it into something much greater? That being said, how can we make failure hurt less? Be kind to yourself and reframe in your mind that art is just a skill you have and want to develop, not your entire identity. By doing this, you unlock a whole other world of potential. You become more experimental. You take more chances, fail, learn, and become more skilled. Failure doesn't hurt as much anymore because when your self-esteem doesn't depend on the outcome of your artwork, you can be free and enjoy the process. Also, for the time being, it might help to take a break from creating art and recharge. Go outside, get some perspective. Often, we get caught up thinking that something is all or nothing when it just feels that way to us because we're too involved. Taking a break, even in the middle of a drawing, could help you create some space between yourself and your artwork, giving you a new perspective. First and foremost, you are a person who makes art, not someone whose entire value depends on the quality of that art. It's important to not lose sight of that. Being open-minded will give you more opportunity for growth in an area that is most unexpected. For instance, I started my art journey thinking that I would be primarily a graphite artist, but 3 years later, I'm actually more of a watercolor and pen artist, and I pick up pencils whenever I want a break. It doesn't really matter how or what you create and when. When you stop fixating on these things, you will once again fall in love with creating. Because it's true, you love drawing. That's why you clicked on this video and why this topic matters to you so much. Like in my childhood story I shared with you earlier, even when I created bad drawings over and over again, I still kept creating. Why? Maybe because the occasional time I created something I liked was so fulfilling it was worth all the failed attempts. After all, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Stop putting yourself in a box. Life is so fluid, so let yourself go with the flow. When there's a storm, the tree that survives is the one that's flexible and bends to the wind. The truth is, you don't hate your art, you hate your expectations. Creating art is just a skill, not who you are. Embrace experimentations and failures as part of the artistic process. Please share your thoughts on this in the comments and any tips you might have that you think we could all find helpful as well. This is my first portrait sketchbook page from 3 years ago versus now. At the end of the day, perhaps seeing progress is all about perspective. Give yourself credit for your hard work. Thank you for watching this quiet portrait drawing process with a few thoughts for artists.